Welcome back to WRPL, Whirlpool, All Things Consumed. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steven.
So, how you been doing, man?
Doing good.
Yeah?
My foot hurts.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Work, you know.
Don't I know it?
Alright. Band too.
Let's get into it. Have you watched or read or played or listened to anything cool lately?
No.
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. It's been there's stuff I've been engaging in, but it's all the same stuff. It's been a bad week for old Steve, but I'm just gonna chalk that up to busy schedule of work and wedding stuff, all that jazz. So yeah.
Okay. There's only one thing. I've watched a couple of things. Nothing worth mentioning. Nothing worth recommending. Except on Apple TV Plus, there's a show called Central Park from the creators of Bob's Burgers. This is their new spin-off. Well, it's not really a spin-off. It's not like any characters cross over or anything, but it's a show that they created and they pitched to Fox, and Fox said, nah, we're going to pass on this. And so a bidding war happened, and a bunch of different streaming platforms fought for it, and it went to Apple TV Plus. It's about a family.
Does it take place in Central Park?
It does!
Wow!
The dad, no. What's his name? Owen? No, I think that's the son.
I've never seen the show, so I have no
Shit.
help to.
Pad for time.
I'm the baby god.
Man, speaking of that, you know the rapper DaBaby?
Yeah.
How he said some fucked up shit, and someone put on Twitter. It
Did
was really homophobic stuff.
Got it.
And so someone put a picture of the baby from Dinosaurs and said, "What did this homophobic piece of shit say?"
I don't have to love it.
Anywho, so Central Park is about the Tillermans. The father, Owen, is like the head park ranger of Central Park. They actually live in Central Park in this old mansion, which I'm assuming is a real thing. His wife is Paige, and she is a reporter, trying to do more heavy-hitting reporting, but she's kind of has to do all the light and fluffy bullshit that she doesn't want to do. And then their kids, Cole, played by Titus Burgess, who's absolutely fantastic, and Molly, who season 1 was played by Kristen Bell, but has since been replaced just because the family is biracial. The father is black and the mother is white, and so after so many other people dropping out of doing people of color voices, she felt it was necessary to do so. So she was replaced by Amy Raver Latman.
Yes. Wait, is that the girl from Netflix Umbrella Academy?
Yes.
Oh, look at me remembering names.
Look at you. If I wasn't on IMDb the moment I started something new, just to look at who directed it, who wrote it, and all that, I would have never known. They do a good job of I don't want to say blending it, because it's not like they combine the two or anything like that, but she just sounds enough like this character.
Oh, cool.
So Molly's she's an artist. She draws a comic book kind of based on herself, and her brother Cole, he reminds me a lot of Gene from Bob's Burgers, but not as loves his mom a lot, kind of likes food, but he's not a weirdo. His thing is he's in love with his little dog named Champagne that he found, and the main plot of the show is this evil rich hotel heiress wants to buy Central Park and just turn it into condos and strip malls and stuff like that. And her little dog got lost. the son got it and fell in love with it, so they cross paths once in a while. Bitsy is the woman's name, actually voiced by Stanley Tucci, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But she's terrific. She's really funny, and she's just utterly evil, and she fits like the fish odor sort of model pretty well, but like way more mean, way more cruel. And then she has her assistant named Helen, played by Daveed Diggs, and his voice fits perfectly for this like older, what's the word? Like her assistant that is just doesn't give two shits about her. She's just waiting for her to die because she thinks she's going to be left everything in her fortune, but it's probably going to all be left to the dog. So yeah, the thing I didn't know about the show going in was it's a musical, and every episode has, I'd say, at least 3 songs in it, and they're really good. Like, all the songs in Bob's Burgers are always really fun, they're really goofy, but these can do the same, but can be really emotional at the same time. They have more of a hip-hop flavor, especially when you have, like, Daveed Diggs singing, which is funny, coming out of this, like, old lady, and she's just rapping about finding a key in Central Park or whatever it is. Yeah, and it's just a really fun show of a nice family doing nice fun things, and it's relatively low stakes, but it's quite enjoyable. And I've got it does get released weekly, so I'm almost caught up with what's out. I think there's a total of 4 episodes left of the season.
Is this season 2?
Season 2, yes. And it's just a really fun watch. I highly recommend it.
Would you say it's as joke heavy as Bob's Burgers, or because there's more music, not so much?
Yeah, I would say like it's lighter on the jokes, but it's better drawn, just because the musical numbers sometimes can get like really out there and psychedelic and transitions and things like that. But I would say Bob's Burgers is funnier because they're kind of just like more pathetic characters, and these people are just relatively normal. Josh Gad is also in it. He's like a Central Park busker. He plays the violin. He's also the narrator of the show, and so he's always like peeking into their windows and then talking to the audience and telling us like what we should and shouldn't know, and interacts with the family. He's kind of like Teddy of the show, but not nearly as pathetic, even if he is a homeless violinist. Yeah, recommend it. If you want to pay the $4 for Apple TV Plus, you know, I'd say it's worth it. There's not a whole lot else on that streaming service that I want. Like, I want to watch Ted Lasso, but they got like 6 movies available, and most of them just don't appeal to me. It's a platform I probably wouldn't pay for. Yeah. But I could see other people liking the shit.
Yeah. I mean, if I had, I'm sure I could find stuff I would be interested in, but I'm not shelling out my slightly worked money.
I mean, it is only, $4 a month or something, so it's a cheap service compared to your Disney Pluses and your Amazon.
That is cool.
Yeah. But I guess when you only have a handful of things, you can't really overcharge.
Well, we have talked about this briefly, but we might as well talk about it on here. But season 2 of Dave, we ended this past week.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how do you like it compared to season 1?
I'd say it's a weaker season as a whole, but not necessarily because the quality went down. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of the episodes, I think, went for more cringe-inducing stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know how much you love that cringe. So cringe is probably my least favorite thing on this planet. I don't like being uncomfortable. I don't like seeing uncomfortable situations. Like, if I'm uncomfortable, I'm fine. But like watching other people like fail or do things that make everyone around them uncomfortable makes me feel secondhand embarrassment. Yeah, secondhand embarrassment makes me feel sick. Yes, and I don't like it. And this season took a lot of that, and I think just upped the ante for sure. Where the first season, I think, was, it had that kind of stuff, but it was more like I could kind of buy it because here was this silly character of Dave, like, struggling to make it, where this season he's, like, kind of made it at this point, and now it's like doing all this cringe stuff while he's built this ego around himself. It's like, oh, I'm this great important kind of guy, and I just want I need everyone to like anticipate my needs, and so like you don't like him in that sense. So when he does this cringy stuff, you're like, you don't like him even more, and it's just like it's not a pleasant watch a lot of times.
Yeah.
But then they do a certain, I don't want to call it like special episode, but maybe the episode focuses on a different character, or they do a flashback episode where he's like not necessarily at the forefront, or he's not playing this egotistical version of himself, and the show is just great in those select episodes. So and especially the finale, I think I don't know if it necessarily tops the first season finale.
I don't think anything can. That episode will be the best episode they've ever done. No matter how long the show goes, I do not think that it will top the season finale of season 1.
Because I mean, the season finale of 1, the just 9-minute long jail music video is hilarious and
great song,
and just like it encompasses everything that like Lil Dicky / Dave Bird is.
And you don't know if it's real or not because it starts the episode with this music video, so you're thinking some of the stuff may have actually happened. As it goes on, you realize, okay, he's probably not doing this, but once you realize, okay, if this isn't actually happening, what the hell is this? Mm-hmm. But it's just a fantastic, funny, gross episode. Yeah.
And then the final scene with him at the Breakfast Club, and he does his freestyle and everything, is the perfect cap to that season, and it's so great. And I didn't think that they could really top that. I think this season 2 finale, though, if it didn't beat it, it came real close for me, because I think throughout this season there's been more character development with a lot of people, and Dave grew in the final episode, and Gata, who's the best character on the show, both seasons, hands down, gets like real emotional weight to it, and it's very like tugs at your heartstrings, and has a very sort of season 1 end cap little bit that I think works really well. Dave pulls off finales really well and has great episodes of television, but some episodes are just hard to watch. The Benny Blanco hangout episode is the most uncomfortable I've ever been watching a show, I think, in a while. Okay. And it's not even uncomfortable, it's just like, spoilers at this point, it's like 2 men hanging out butt naked with each other, which is like fine, I have no problem with that. I am all for like gay rights and everything. Not that these 2 men are gay, that's the other thing, but it's not like, it's just, I guess it made me uncomfortable because I've never seen a friendship like this. Not because it was like what they were doing was uncomfortable per se. Like, I've never seen 2 guys just hang out and just like willingly
look at each other's assholes and stuff.
Check each other's assholes out. At one point, they put each other's balls on each other's foreheads for
take a shower together.
For just the fun of it. Yeah. And like, it's in the episode, like, Gata comes over with his buddy, and they like end up kind of talking about it, which Dave didn't want to, because you could tell like Dave's embarrassed that like he enjoys this. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. And I think it was supposed to be played for comedy, but I didn't get jokes out of it. It was just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, it was a little more surreal than outright hilarious.
And they kept calling each other Chuck every like 12 seconds. Yeah. And it was that joke got old very fast.
But I like that he continued to call him Chuck throughout the season. Even though Dave didn't call Benny Blanco Chuck, Benny Blanco called Dave Chuck. Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what I will say about that episode. It just makes me wonder like how much of that they do in real life, or like, because I mean clearly that's, I don't think he's like, hey Benny, this episode I want to put my balls in your face. That cool? I feel like that's something they've already
Remember
done.
That time I spent the night and I put my balls on your face? Wouldn't that be funny in the show? Like,
great. Let's do that.
Going back to Gata being like the best and kind of like the most emotional character that isn't like over dramatic, or angry or spiteful or whatever. He is what really sold me on season 1. I think it's like episode 3 or 4 when we learn that he's bipolar, and he has that breakdown in front of Dave. the beginning of that episode, it was like, this character is annoying. He is just too much, and he needs to fucking calm down. And then when you slowly realize what he's going through, and then he breaks down in front of them, I was like, oh shit, I totally get it now, and I'm totally endeared to him for the rest of the season. No matter what he does, I get that character. And it was just like, within a few minutes, it totally flipped for me. And ever since then, it's just like, I root for him the whole time, and he just can't get a good break. And I was expecting way worse things to happen to him, like when his car got towed. I was expecting like the worst thing to happen. But that episode ends with him like performing in front of a bunch of kids and having a great time.
Yeah.
So that the show's really good at just like toying with your emotions, and it makes you think like something really bad's gonna happen, and then they just flip it on you and go like, no, nothing bad happened. Like sometimes things are bad, but you get over it, and sometimes good things come out of it, and sometimes it's the opposite.
Yeah, I think with his bipolar thing, it would have been real easy for the show to go like, okay, we need a scene, like a real dramatic scene. We're gonna have Gator have a breakdown or whatever. Like that's a crutch they can lean on. It's just like Gator is just, a crazy person at times, for lack of a better term. But like, this whole season, they kind of toyed with it, but he never actually had a breakdown at all. It's just like, people go through, like you said, stuff all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to lead to like this grand freak out.
Or he tries to kill himself and he ends up in a hospital or anything like that.
After the finale of season 2, I did go into comments and people really were praising the episode. But they talked about like, when I saw Gator near the end and he was crying, and it was just like, I thought like, oh, maybe he was gonna like try and hurt himself or whatever. It's just like, Dave, how could Dave talk to like his biggest supporter like that? And just, because their friendship was the one thing, that was just like, I almost felt like it was grounding Dave, because Gator from the get-go was just like, nah man, I got your back. Like, we're gonna put each other on, we're gonna make it to the top. Like, Gator believed this guy was gonna be his ticket to the top. And so, like, when they had that big fight, it's just like, man, like, fuck Dave, I hate Dave. And then it's like, oh, like, him coming up from the floor. Like, he was the first person people saw, and they were doing Gator's song from the beginning of the episode. And, like, Dave just walked out on stage as opposed to doing his grand entrance. And it was just beautiful stuff. And I love Gator.
and it's like, it's a little manipulative, but like they really make you dislike Dave in many episodes and many scenes in many episodes, and especially in this finale, you want him to do well because he's getting this big break, and maybe Gator's bringing it down and everything, but he's totally right in everything that he says. And then you think like, especially in the scene, like Gator's crying and like you don't know what he's gonna do. Maybe he went out solo on his own and he's performing his first show or something like that. And you think like Dave left him behind, but then within one scene, it's like you're completely endeared back to Dave because yes, he did do the right thing. He came to his senses. So it's like no matter how much you can get frustrated with Dave through the entire fucking season, by the end you're like, yeah, okay, I like this guy again.
Yeah,
you manipulative little shit.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't sure if I would continue with the show.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's a ton else I'm watching, or at least that, I can think of that I'm watching. And, like, I like his outside music. Maybe not I would have stopped watching, but I would have been hesitant about joining season 3 if this finale wasn't great, only because there was only, like, 2 episodes previously that I, like, really liked. But after this finale, I was like, yeah, you got me back in. I'm rooting for Dave and Gator. And also, I never knew that his real name was Devontae, and that, so he was a Dave as well. Oh. Yeah.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, I think...
Did they say that?
So, at the beginning of the episode, his mom, when he kind of like has an argument with his mom and he walks out, she starts saying Devontae. And I don't remember if she says Dave specifically, but like as he's walking out, she's like, Devontae. And then the Dave title card comes up and I was like, that's cool. And then at the end, when they're both performing and it's like, ain't no doubt about it, and then Dave comes up, they're both Dave, and I was like, that's good. Dope. Yeah.
And well, I'm glad you're here, Steve, because sometimes I do not catch the thing. I'll catch the smallest minute detail of something and like lean to whoever I'm watching a movie with and be like, that's gonna come up later. And then other things that are like, someone saying the name Dave and putting it right on your screen, I'm just like, title card.
Well, I like kind of noticed it, but it didn't really click for me at the beginning. I was just like, oh, Devontae Dave. Okay, that's pretty cool. But then it wasn't until like I looked up an interview with Lil Dicky where he talked about the finale. He's just like, yeah, it's funny because in real life his family calls him like they said his name's Devontae in real life, but his family calls him Dave. So we're both Daves. It's like, oh, that's cool.
That's very
but like I said, I don't remember if his family specifically calls Gata Dave at any point. But once I learned that he was Devontae, I was like, oh, that's
that
like Dave. Okay, that's cool. And it almost felt like, okay, this is now the Gata episode as opposed to the Dave Lil Dicky show. Best episode of television I think I've seen this year was the finale, but I haven't seen that much television. I mean, I've watched a lot of television, but it's been like
shit you've seen.
Not necessarily stuff I've seen, but some stuff I've seen, or stuff that's like aired years ago or whatever. So
catching up on old shit.
Yeah, like new shows to me, but shows that have been on for a while.
Well, did you want to go through the episodes and talk a little bit about like plus and minuses about certain things? Because I think the season got off to a rocky start.
For sure.
The first episode isn't bad, but once again, like, Dave is just being a real annoying prick. They don't get much better until about halfway through the season.
Yeah. So we'll do just some quick stuff. Episode 1, titled International Gander. Dave is in Korea making a music video.
Because he's trying to capitalize on K-pop, but he doesn't really give a shit about K-pop.
Yeah. And he's got a feature with a K-pop star, but there's some miscommunication, or like they believe her manager might be like a member of the Yakuza or something like, or like some.
No, they thought her
manager was
security, or her security was her manager, and that he was completely controlling because that's what the managers are like there.
Yeah.
And they just misread the situation and kind of shoot themselves in the foot.
So they spent all this money on this super ridiculous music video. Wasn't even going to be released now because the woman CL is the
just the letter CL.
Just the letter CL. I'm not into K-pop, so
no.
I've never heard of her. But yeah, and they have a guy with them who's.
Speaking of K-pop,
yeah,
what does BTS stand for?
I've had this conversation, and I know a lot of people think it's behind the scenes, but it's not.
I mean, that's what it would be like in the movie biz, but
yeah.
Big tasty snack.
I can't remember.
Yeah. I mean, that's an easy Google, but I don't give a shit.
Yeah. I give a shit enough to ask, but not give a shit enough to look it up.
Yeah. Don't care. If you played one of their songs for me, would have no idea that it's them.
Yeah, so Dave's just a real
piece of work.
Real piece of work.
And we learn he has a laptop with his new album on it, but he actually hasn't written a single thing.
Yeah, it was the only thing he wrote was this song, where it's about him taking a shit in Korea. And he has, I guess, his like translator with him, who's like, I think some guy they picked up from like UC Berkeley or something.
I think he works for the record label, and this is his internship, and he wanted to be with other artists, but because he spoke Korean, he got kind of stuck with them.
Right. And then you find out that he was born in Korea, but he like moved when he was a baby and hasn't been back, and they like the Korean government find that out, and they arrest him, and now he has to join the Korean army for 2 years.
All men have to be in the army for at least 2 years.
Dave and the group are like trying to get him out, but at the same time they're like also super concerned about the laptop that everyone doesn't have any music on it until the end, and the whole time it's I just felt so bad for that kid, and like you kind of get a little bit of like what happens to him, kind of maybe
in a hallucination.
Yeah,
I think that was more of just his guilt showing.
Sure, 100%, but it's like. You never actually find out, I don't think, what happens to that kid. So, as far as we know, he's still in Korea, which sucks.
Yeah.
So that was a big step down for Dave as an audience member. Just like,
for sure. All
right, it's one thing to be like a shitty celebrity because like that's kind of like the stereotype. But it's another thing you took a kid from his home and now he may have to serve. Either he could be in a Korean jail or in the Korean army. I don't know which is worse.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about South Korea.
All right. What's episode 2?
episode 2, titled Ansi.
Oh!
He sees Allie for the first time since they broke up.
Yeah, he's going to hit his DJ's like big party thing. You know, he's interrupting and trying to like, you know, show how cool he is, and he's worried that his ex is gonna show up, and you know he's anticipating that, but she never does, and so he hits on a girl, takes her back to his place, and tries to recreate a special moment he had with Allie.
Yeah, that's so depressing.
It was, but it made me mad at that woman because it's just like she didn't get it. Like, just talk into this auto-tune thing, and like Dave will like kind of help cue you up.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know what to say. It's like she just starts repeating things back, and it's just like it's really frustrating. Yeah. But
I mean, from one point, it's just like, yeah, come on, girl, like it's not that hard.
Yeah.
At another point, like I feel like that scenario is very real. Like I feel like I've talked to people like that who just like they're too nervous. They don't want to look like a fool, so they just don't do anything at all. And it's like what I'm asking isn't hard.
Yeah.
But it's not about what I'm asking. It's about your comfortability with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I that was believable to me. Yeah. But
this episode wasn't bad. It was just another one of Dave butting into his buddy's conversation to try to like make himself the center of attention when it's like, dude, this isn't you're a guest here. You're not the center of attention. Mm-hmm. So it was another sort of Dave, you're a piece of shit episodes.
The next episode is episode 3 is the Benny Blanco episode called The Observer, where the first 10 minutes of the episode is a montage of Dave and Benny hanging out.
We kind of hit on this earlier.
Yeah, but what we did talk about is putting, I think, peanut butter in the gum.
He's trying to put gum on his butthole so he can blow a bubble, and then it gets stuck in all of his butt hair. And they're trying to like cut it out and put peanut butter on it.
So yeah, Dave is wrist deep, essentially, in Benny Blanco's butt crack, like picking gum out.
And then they find like a weird lump, and he has kind of a panic attack, and they go to
they have to
doctors.
Rush Benny to the doctors, where he sees that
Allie saw the same doctor, saw her name on a check-in sheet, and then goes to like check up on her, and she's like kind of loopy from drugs, and then he pukes on her back.
Yeah, and you think like, oh, maybe because she's, you know, kind of intoxicated, for lack of a better term, or kind of out of it, like, oh, is she gonna confess like she misses Dave, or like are they gonna
sleep together
or something like that?
Yeah.
And all classic sort of cinematic things are pointing to that, and then Dave just pukes on her back and kills the mood.
Yep. And sleeps on her couch.
Yeah.
Not a bad episode. Like there's definitely some annoying shit in this episode with all the Chuck stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny, especially saying like, you know, two black men who are like, this is just like bored white people shit. Like you have too much money and nothing to do, and so you do this gay shit for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I was interested to see, that's probably my favorite part of the episode is when Gaeta and his friend come over and just see like kind of like those two worlds collide. Not necessarily that they're just so different, but it's just like getting kind of like the black perspective, and like Dave saying like, oh, Gaeta's not into that gay shit. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, he's like, no, it's not like a homophobic thing. It's just like, that's just what their culture, like they were just raised. It's not like
you got to be like a gangster or a rapper.
Yeah,
you gotta be hard.
You gotta be hard. You can't be like hanging out with your buddies and just dropping balls on each other's faces or whatever. Yeah, and then his buddy, Gaeta's friend, being a EMT, and just like, yeah, I've seen every possible thing. Like, show me your balls, man. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, it won't bother me. Or show me your asshole lump. And yeah, just it was just kind of fun seeing, you know, Dave being embarrassed for once, and Benny being like, yeah, man, like that's what we do all the time. Like we hang out and we get naked and chase each other around. And just like Benny has like no shame whatsoever.
And I totally relate to this episode because I'm a pretty personable person, and I can kind of blend in with whoever I need to make a conversation go. And then there'd be plenty of times I'd be talking with a coworker and think everything's totally fine, and then when one of my outside world friends meets this person, and then I get to kind of like look back and go, oh, this person's a goober or is gross or weird or whatever, and it's like, oh shit, I don't want to associate I don't want my friends to think this is who I associate with, because working at it was totally normal, like, talking with him, it was like, yeah, he's a weirdo, but whatever, we're kind of cool. But then as soon as, like, you and Lauren met him, it was just like, oh my god, this guy's the worst. How could I ever show my... Why did I even invite this guy? So, like, I totally can get that situation. I've been there.
So, episode 4, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Probably one of my least favorite episodes.
Yeah. Doesn't offer a lot in the way of comedy. I do think it's funny that a man of his size is claustrophobic, because I imagine he'd be claustrophobic everywhere.
Most of the time, yeah.
Being like a 7'2" or whatever he is. Like, the dude is so tall.
I think this episode could have been better if it was just him interviewing him. Just like
a bottle episode.
Bottle episode in the house, and just back and forth, kind of Dave justifying himself, but him, like, trying to bring a check to Allie to win her over, and I didn't. Oh, and then
the check was like $1,000 a lot. I think it was only like $1,000.
It was $1,000 before school. That's good.
Yeah. But it was like he printed out on. I think he said it was like $800 to like put it on a big check or something like that. So it was just like this enormous like grand thing.
If you're gonna do a big check, it's got to be at least a $5,000 check. If you're gonna pay $800 for it.
Yeah, you got to justify it, or I can't remember if it was $800, but it's just like an egregious amount just to like put it on a big check, which is a funny bit. But like Dave was just being such a douchebag about it with Allie, and he was just like trying to be cool, and it was just, that was real sad. And like, we've seen Dave be like open and honest and stuff. I know he's sort of can be kind of guarded and everything because he doesn't want to, he's trying to make it in this world and doesn't want to appear weak or whatever. Him getting stuck in his weird loops during the interview and like getting on the topic of race and trying to dig himself out of that, and just like all that stuff, once again, just cringe inducing and just didn't make me comfortable. But then you finally hit a moment where he like is honest and says like, I'm worried that I'm not a good person. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff like I want to see in a show, not doing Dave stuff.
Yeah. And I like that at the end Kareem is saying like, you're not a good person.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you. Is this also the episode where his manager has like beef with a neighbor because of trash cans?
I think that might have been the episode before.
Oh no, this is the one where him and Gata are like, he goes to interview some like TikTok brothers who he's gonna potentially manage, right?
Right, yeah.
Which
the trash cans was the episode before with Benny.
Okay, I did like that trash can stuff because that was also like really embarrassing. But the fact that that was like his birthday, right? Like he has this freak out over this most minor thing, and then at the end you find out it was
Dave
his
was hanging out with
birthday.
Benny all day, and he was just like, "Oh, hey man, happy birthday!"
I wanted to call you before it hit midnight and stuff, and it's like really sad. And I wish he had more to do in this season, but I like everything that they give him is small. Managing new people, he's not going to go on tour next season, and it's like a lot develops with him with very little screen time, and I wish he had more because he's one of my favorite characters. I didn't like him in season 1 all that much, but he's really grown on me.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because like his character in season 1, although like clearly he was very close to Dave because like I think the first time you really see him, he's like in the bathtub with Dave, like putting lotion on his acne back.
Yeah.
I guess that was a clear precursor to Benny. It's like with Benny he could go as far as he wanted to, where like I think Mike, I guess, probably had some boundaries. They were going to put balls on each other's face.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like seeing that where he was sort of the outsider to this pop culture world, what's industry world, where he just had like a regular like 9-to-5 job and just thought like everything Dave did was weird. To him, like now being the enabler of Dave, like okay, like I'm gonna like be on you to get your work done, but all your crazy ideas, like I'll try to make happen. It's an interesting change of his character. But like all his stuff this season with, we'll get into the next episode with the bar mitzvah stuff, but yeah, his character definitely got sad this season.
Yeah, for sure. So this episode is after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
After the Kareem episode is the bar mitzvah, which is one of the 3 episodes I really liked. I
really enjoyed this episode. This is when it started like, okay, this is what I was kind of hoping for this show, because you have good friend conflict, and then you have all the sad Gata stuff and the shitty, the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day for Gata, and then this weird bar mitzvah thing, which is like perfect. I was waiting for an episode like this, just because Dave always talks about being Jewish, and I figured we would get something. So I knew him talking to kids was going to be an absolute disaster, and we'll get to what he was doing. But like, what the fuck were those kids doing in that room? Like, one had a hood on and one was laying on the floor. Do you actually know what they were doing?
Yeah, it was like almost an Eyes Wide Shut kind of party.
Were they jacking off onto this kid or something?
Well, I think if I remember correctly, no, because Dave doesn't talk about blowing anybody. It's like, what? No, it's just like they would kiss the tips of each other's penis or something. Or maybe am I just projecting?
Maybe you are. Well, he was telling them about like how you could choke yourself and make yourself black out, and I thought maybe that would be it. But it looked like almost they were sacrificing someone to Satan. They were all like in a circle with someone on the floor.
I think it was just everyone was in a circle because they were all just trying to watch I think it was the bar mitzvah boy. Maybe it kind of just looked like he was going to blow his friend or do something like that. Because they never showed the video, but they like clearly took a video and posted it to TikTok or Instagram or whatever.
It was TikTok.
Because that's how the dad found out and freaked out. But he's like, oh, and like Dave looked at the video, he's like, oh man, like why would you post that? Yeah. Like Dave was disappointed in these kids. And
it was more like hey, what I told you was like something in secret. Don't go and blabbing about this stuff.
Yeah. Gata, terrible day, get his car taken, like his phone was dead, no one would let him charge it, didn't have any money on him or like couldn't get money out.
I'm not sure about the money, but like another way of how this show was really good at like subverting your expectations of when he like hops the fence and he unplugs someone's like Christmas lights so he can charge his phone. It was just like, okay, well, he's a black guy on someone else's property, the cops are going to get called, something really bad's going to happen. Nope. He was able to make his text messages, whatever, or make his phone call, and then he went to the place. Yeah, he had to sit there all night waiting for them to open, but it's this dread that something bad is going to happen at any moment. And it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and Dave and Els have a big argument because Els said that he wants credit on all of Dave's songs. And Dave doesn't...
Or a feature by.
Featuring. And Dave, doesn't want that because, that's not what a lot of artists do. And if he's, featuring him, it seems like Dave wasn't doing as much work as he was. And then Els is being like a real kind of dick about it to him all episode. And then, obviously Dave is being a dick back. And then you find out, like, through a phone call with Els to... I guess another friend or a manager or something, and it was just like he was just testing Dave to see what he would do. He didn't actually want him to feature him on the songs, which once again, like once that happened, I mean it's kind of like a backhanded way of like doing things, but at the same time it's just like just another reason to hate Dave, or because they couldn't have like a normal conversation, but then they get kicked out of the bar mitzvah, and it's just like times where we got kicked out of the bar mitzvah. So it was just a nice little moment of, these two characters who I think needed to just argue with each other, flesh it out, and then like realize why they're friends. So that was nice. I like moments where, friends can stay friends. And then Gata shows up like 2 minutes after Lil Dicky and Els get kicked out and puts on like the coolest hip-hop show in the bar mitzvah's driveway. And I was just like, oh man, I'm so happy for Gata because after that whole episode, you're just like, you just want something good to happen. And then he like has his I'm a star moment for the first time on the show, performing a song that he actually wrote in real life.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We can't skip Mike and the bar mitzvah kid's dad. Very weird. Like, he's just having a normal conversation about, life and are you married? Do you have kids? And he just decides to lie about it. And he starts making up all types of shit, like that they had an autism scare with the kid and just like digging a hole that he has to keep lying. It never really comes back to like bite him in the ass or anything, but it's like he's so upset with his own dad for ruining his bar mitzvah that he just like instantly latches to this really nice father doing the nice good thing for his own son, and he just yearns for that.
And well, I mean, I guess it does kind of come back where like the daughter, or I think he had a daughter, right, or a son, it doesn't matter, but like the bar mitzvah boy's dad says something about kids, and then Dave kind of catches it. It's like, what are you talking about? Who the hell is your kid's name or whatever? And so I think they realize.
But he doesn't have to like confront the guy. The guy.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like, why did you lie about this?
He's, just everybody get out. I think the bar mitzvah stuff added all the comedy you like. The Dave and Elle stuff added the character growth you like. And the Gator stuff just was all
tragedy
into positivity, I guess. And so it was all a perfect storm, I think. It was just like, that's what a Dave episode should be, is comedy with heart, character growth.
Yeah.
So.
And Dave admitting that he licked a hamster's vagina.
Yeah, which also, after watching that, like, that's the thing when you're basing your show off of a version of yourself, and like everyone essentially has like their real name, and you're meeting these real people and everything, you start wondering like what's real and what's for the show. And obviously you can excuse some stuff when you're a kid, like whatever, because you're a kid and you're just doing weird kid stuff. At the same time, it's like, why do you want to admit that? Like, yeah, you could get a pass on it, I guess, but I mean, that may not be true at all.
I hope that's something
to see if it is, though.
That Dave grew up on a street where some kid did that, and it just stuck in his brain forever, and he had to put it in the show. I really hope that he did not do that himself.
Episode 6, Somebody Date Me, the Doja Cat.
This is the best episode of the season. It is like perfect Dave cringe, where it's like he's doing just fine. He's actually has a win, and he just totally fucks it up being himself, and it's spectacular. And it's like, it's coming. You don't know how it's gonna happen, but I thought he was actually going to beef it on the date.
Yeah.
But he didn't even get that far. But tell us a summary of what this is about.
So Dave is swiping through
Celebrity
Tinder, essentially, and not that the only people on there are celebrities. It's just like, it's essentially Tinder that has celebrities on it, I guess. It's just like really attractive people.
Yeah.
And
maybe you have to pay to be on it or something.
Yeah. And I think he has. I think in the episode he might have said he's gotten a chick or two off of it or whatever. But then he matches with Doja Cat, and he sees that and is like so excited instantly. And he actually, like, you see the text messages pop up throughout the episode, and he's just like crushing it. Like, everything he says is funny, everything she says is funny. Like, they're both like, there's clearly like, chemistry, at least as much chemistry as you can have through text message. And like, even stuff that like he fucks up, or like he's not sure if to say, but he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go for it. Like, it still lands, because she's just like, I guess, appreciates his like straightforwardness about certain things.
Yeah,
so she's like, go ahead.
Oh, he accidentally sends a screen cap of the conversation. He's trying to send it to his friend and be like, look, I'm about to go on a date with her, but he sends it to her, but then he's able to recover.
Yeah, which it was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that is genius.
Yeah.
It's like, that is a great move. I was so impressed, because because it was like, instantly he like had the answer to it. You see that kind of stuff in real life, and it's like, man, they really need like a 10-second delay on messages just so you can be like, shit. Yeah, even with her, like if he sent something and he's just like kind of worried that the joke wouldn't land or whatever, like her joke back was just like, no matter what he says, I have something for it. And so it just really worked. It felt like a real conversation, and like something that I've done, not matching with Doja Cat.
We've all
matched with Nicki Minaj from time to time, but Doja Cat, no. Anyway, to where you're just like, I don't know about this or whatever, but I did like their conversation, and then, but I don't like that episode just for the ending, where he becomes this douchey incel type of just like, you know, you haven't responded to me in X amount of time, or blah blah blah, and just sending like
I see you were
long.
posting on this other thing,
Yeah,
but
and
you don't
she's
have
like,
time for me.
And then as she's getting these messages, she's like dressed for the date, like she's about to walk out the door essentially, and message him back, and she just like pops off her earrings or whatever, and like goes back to bed, and it's just like so frustrating because. Like, we've seen Dave be this, like, kind, thoughtful person who, like, cares about other people's feelings. Not so much when he's, like, working on his own stuff, but, like, I feel like as a character, he's, like, make women feel safe or comfortable, and, like, I believe he would be, like, a feminist dude. And then because he was, like, frustrated that he wasn't going on a date with Doja Cat that night, or at least thought he wasn't, he just becomes this, like, real shithead of just, like, well, forget you, blah, 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 and paragraph-long text messages, and it just made me... It's like, oh, God, I fucking hate Dave. Like, Dave's a bad person.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like this episode. Yeah. It's just for... I mean, the episode's fine. I don't want to say I dislike it, but it's not, like, one I love.
I love her response. It's like after these huge paragraphs of Dave yelling at her why she's a bad person for not responding quick enough, she just sends an LOL, and that's it. And it's just like, that's perfect. She doesn't need to justify anything. It's great. One thing I like, because as you stated, you see the text messages on the screen the whole time. And so, like, when Dave is doing his thing, it's just that text message chain, really. He's got really nothing going on. But whenever Doja Cat is on her phone, it's alerts of her mentions and different articles and just, like, notifications from her social media. And it just shows...
Her manager yelling at her, like, you need to go do this thing.
And how busy she is.
Yeah,
and, like...
just never stops. That would drive me insane.
Absolutely.
I could not... Like, if I was in the entertainment industry, I would either need an assistant who dealt with that, or I would just turn my phone off and check it, like, once an hour.
Yeah. Yep.
And be like, there's no way I could get 50 alerts every 10 minutes and
that'd be
function.
The worst. But we see her, like, she's in a photo shoot that's not going the way she planned, and she's having to go to, like, a dance rehearsal, and it's like she's so busy throughout the day being this person, and all Dave has to do is, like, pick which hot lady's ass needs to be next to his face for a music video, you know, and he can't even do that. He can't even function, and she's just, like, juggling all these things, and then he just totally blows it, being a total turd.
And I'm glad you brought up that selecting lady thing, because that was the other part that, like, frustrated me. It was just like, in the same episode, you see him, like, being uncomfortable, like, objectifying women, because it's like, oh, they're staring me in the face, and you line them up like this, and you wanted me to pick them out. This feels wrong, and then he just says all this stuff to her.
Yeah,
it's like, dude, just if it didn't work out this one time, like, give it another, like, try it for another date, and if that one doesn't work out, maybe be upset, because it's like, but
he was just like way too antsy for that. But I think it's also an in-person versus on the internet sort of thing. Like, you have to judge a woman right in front of you. You don't want to do that, but it's really easy to send a huge text chain to someone that you don't have to see in person. So it's easier to be a bigger piece of shit online than it is in person.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder if Dave grew up poor or in, like, a different state or something, like, because I could see him being, like, a real shitty frat dude.
Sure.
If he had, like, I mean, obviously any difference to your upbringing can change you dramatically,
Absolutely.
but I could see him going down a path of, like, he'd be the guys at rallies and stuff, like, holding tiki torches and stuff, if he wasn't raised the way he was.
Could be. Well, I mean,
but
being
I guess
Jewish, probably not. But we can't forget my favorite joke in that episode is that Dave's parents are in town just renting an Airbnb for the winter so they can be in LA for the nice weather. Dave can't really spend time with them, so he passes them off to Mike, who takes them pants shopping, and then it turns out that Dave's dad came in his pants watching a Doja Cat video. It's, like, so embarrassing and just, like, perfect. Like, I can see Dave's dad doing something like that. Not because of, like, who his dad is, but, like, where Dave comes from. Like, the genes he gets, of course it'd be from someone like that. And I just was so embarrassed for him, but it was so funny. And I'm surprised Mike didn't mention that. Like, we didn't see him mention it to Dave at all. Maybe in the future he'll use it. Like, well, at least my dad doesn't come in his pants watching a music video.
And yeah, I like that Mike didn't make it a big thing. Like, I think Mike clearly could tell what had happened.
Yeah.
But I like that he was just like close enough and respectful enough with Dave's parents. It's just like, all right, well, like, clean yourself up. Let's get out of here.
And then like, we'll take the pants, you know. But still, like, with a smile on his face, like almost. I can't wait to tell Dave about this. All right, next episode.
Next episode, Ad Man. It's the episode where we see Dave's...
hold on. Before we move on, the little stinger at the end of that is, since Dave doesn't get to go on a date with Doja Cat, he reconnects with someone he dropped, because he was going to go on a date with this rando girl, but he dropped her to go with Doja Cat. But since she dropped him, he went back to her. And then she dropped her date, and he was left at the restaurant, and so he starts swiping and swipes and matches with Allie. So
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that, because I totally forgot about that. But what's funny about that is, like, you see, like, Doja Cat is like pinnacle celebrity for Dave. It's like, this girl is out of my league. And to this girl that he was texting before, who was just like a normie girl who worked at like a retail store or whatever. That
Dave is out of her league.
Dave is out of her league. Like, oh, this is a real music rapper or whatever. And so,
and then the dude is kind of like pasty, doughy looking dude.
Yeah. And
so the girl that dumped him was probably out of his league.
It's a funny chain of events you don't normally see in TV. It's always usually about like these two or whatever. But like seeing how different people move up the social ladder of the internet and stuff, it was real interesting. And
I like that butterfly effect sort of thing. Of one little thing changes a bunch, and you don't get to see that in your real life, because like, oh, you called out to work. Well, what would be different if you went into work? Maybe you would have gotten in an accident. Maybe you would have saw something funny, and you know, things could change your life. I just always love those little things of like, well, you know, he kind of helped Allie get over him quicker by being a shitty person to this celebrity that he actually had a chance with. Like, he fucked himself twice.
But the only thing I will say about that is, like, Allie is so pretty, and not that the dude that at the end was like unattractive by any means, but it was just like, if you're tracking I feel like the logic of the scene was just like, okay, Doja Cat's the top, then there's Dicky, then there's this girl, and then there's this guy. But Allie agreed to go on a date with this guy. Like,
Allie's.
It's like, well, it's not necessarily even about like looks or anything. It's just like, was that saying like, how low does Allie feel that she's going on a date with this guy, or was it just like, you know, because theoretically,
because she swiped first technically, because he swiped on her and they instantly matched. So that means she had already thought that he was a good choice.
Yeah. So, I mean. Or maybe it was just like, oh, look, Allie's dating, and that's probably just like, all that was. Yeah. But it was just funny of just like, if we're going down the ladder, just like, wait, Allie's at the bottom of that? No, Allie is like...
Not at all.
Allie's great.
Which is one bad thing about this season, is there wasn't enough Allie. I know this wasn't about her. It made sense for her to be in season 1 more, because she is the girlfriend, but she's really funny. She's nice to look at. I kind of wish we had an episode with her and Emma.
I believe.
Since they're roommates and everything, it would have been nice to maybe see, I don't know, have them go do something fun. Maybe have it be about swiping and dating and things like that. And then, because Emma kind of doesn't get a lot to do in the season, she has like one episode where she kind of has I'm going to go do this thing. She has a freak out in the second episode about like being a bad driver. And then she gets one flashback episode that kind of gives her some motivation. But it would have been nice to see them, maybe Allie's dating again, Emma's really like ho-hum with her life and wanting to do more art and stuff like that. But you know, when shows like this, you only get 10 episodes, you can't always give it to the C characters.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see what they do with her if there is a season 3. Like, I feel like after this season, if this was the last season of Dave, I feel like
it's a 3-season sort of show.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, if it ends now, I think it ended it ended great enough to where it'd be like, okay, like, it told the story it needed to tell, because now both of these two Daves are on the up. But I'd be interested to see what they do with her, because from the finale, it seemed like he's kind of like, because he didn't respond with "let's get together soon," just like said, you know, thanks, or he liked her comment when she was just like, hey, I'm so proud of you, you know, good luck at the show or whatever. that was kind of him letting that go, and especially now that she has a boyfriend. Like, if you wrote her off the show completely, I could see it, but I do hope she comes back, and I'd just be curious as to what she would do. But like you said, if they did like an episode of just her and Emma, I think that'd be great. Like, kind of like how Man Seeking Woman had an episode from Jay Baruchel's sister's perspective.
Oh yeah.
I think you could. Dave is a kind of show that lends itself. Like, you could follow any of these characters by themselves without Dave or very limited Dave, and it worked just fine.
Damn, it made me remember Man Seeking Woman.
I know. Another FX show.
That was only 3 seasons, or was that?
That was 3 seasons.
That was 3. And it makes sense that show ended because they weren't seeking anymore. They got married, right?
Yeah.
At the end.
Well, I don't know. I think they could have done more. I think they just like knew the third was going to be their last, so they just wrote the ending, or they just gave him the out of having the girlfriend or whatever. But like that show was great.
That was a great show.
Watch Man Seeking Woman.
Yes, that's a high recommendation. I don't know if it's on any sort of streaming thing.
I think it's on Hulu because Hulu has FX.
Oh, that would make sense. But I've never seen like it pop up as a suggestion.
Well, no one watched it when it was on air except for us.
Yeah. Next episode.
All right.
Done. Final 3, right?
Well, we still final 4 because we never talked about Admin, which shows Dave.
This is like my second favorite episode.
Yeah, this is an episode I really liked.
Dave and Emma work for an ad agency.
Yeah, this is like post-college before Dave decided to be a rapper. Well,
he hasn't even decided to be called Lil Dicky yet.
Yeah, you kind of see him trying to workshop, I think, rap names. I forget.
Oh, it's Norm Bender.
So, yeah, just working a 9 to 5, pitching ideas for like just random companies or whatever. But you see him start the beginnings of his rap career and everything, and he's like full of his like Dave confidence, but without like being egotistical about it. Just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be great, or I know I'm great. I'm ready to show the world I'm great. And Emma, who's like so on his team, and just like, you know, thinks he's like so funny and cool. And I just liked their friendship because although we've seen them hang out, she's always seems like sarcastic towards Dave. Like, she's more Allie's friend at this point, and she just kind of like works around Dave. It doesn't seem like she typically enjoys hanging out.
They were like friends by association.
Yeah.
But it turns out they were friends first.
Yeah. All that, while we're getting that flashback, we're also getting modern day where Dave is going to be featured in a XXL freestyle with Designer and Lil Yachty, another rapper who I can't remember. But he's not good at like freestyling on the spot, and he wants to like get the beat.
Even though we've seen him do it plenty of times.
Yeah. So he's nervous about it, and he's trying to get the beat ahead of time, and they're like, well, we don't do that. That's not how like the XXL freestyles work. And so he's like freaking out. And so this is kind of basically an Emma episode, though. So back in the past, Mountain Dew comes in and they want to do a pitch, and Dave and Emma get the assignment, but then they get taken off because their boss is just like, no, what, I'm going to take over or give it to the people came back from vacation, we're going to let them run.
They were able to knock something out while they were on vacation. And
Dave and Emma were disappointed because like they had an idea of like Dave was going to rap for them and Emma was going to like do the graphics and like kind of like shoot a video and stuff. And so when they were like, oh, you guys aren't going to do it, they're just like, let's just go in there and do it anyway. Like, what are they going to do? And so they do it, and Dave kills it, has this really cool, like, fun rap. Everyone in the room super impressed. Then but like, kind of Dave takes all the credit, and you can see Emma's disappointed. And so now in the future, or the present day, Dave has to perform, and he like is able to. Emma has stolen the beat for him, so he's able to sort of like practice beforehand, and he's excited. But then they get up there, and it's not the same beat, and then so he just like fumbles, and they like can't do it, and he's just all in his head, and he just fails. And then you see Emma smiling because like she's seen this guy just kind of like take credit or not thank her because she gives him the beat, and he's like, oh yes, and like runs away immediately and doesn't thank her for anything. So like now she's seeing him fail has now brought her some joy because like, yeah, this motherfucker has like he just doesn't care. It's just like he only thinks about himself, even after his friends are like doing all this stuff for him.
Yep. And Data's like trying to network, and people are approaching Emma saying like, oh well, what are you doing? She's, oh, this is just for fun. I don't really do this as a profession. But then she realizes, like, well, this is what she's always wanted to do. She's wanted to make movies. Why isn't she doing this? So then she goes to Gata and say, like, yeah, I'm going to shoot your video. And
Gata's like, cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I don't have any money. I don't care. Let's just do it.
Yeah. And and that's another reason to like Gata. It's like, he's not necessarily looking for the biggest people. I mean, yeah, he's networking and wants great stuff, obviously. Mm-hmm. But he's like, he knows Emma, he trusts Emma, and he's like down for his friends. They're just like, you want to direct my video? Cool, let's do it. Mm-hmm. Just like, didn't have to think about it for a second. He's just like, great, let's jump into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this, you see Emma's trajectory as like, oh, maybe she's going to do the directing thing. And this whole season, Gata's trying to, put out his music. And Mike's taking on new clients, and Els is, in the Bar Mitzvah episode, is like so busy like doing his producing and beat making stuff. It's just like you see all of his friends branching out and doing their own thing, and Dave is just like
can't even do his own thing.
Yeah. While season 1, Dave was seemingly constantly on the rise. Mm-hmm. This season, Dave is like, can he even get any higher than what he is? Mm-hmm. And so it's just like you can sort of see the branches going out. It's just like, oh, maybe Dave is a failure and he's just brought all of his friends up, and now they're going to leave him behind because he is so shitty this season.
Yes, very much.
But yeah, one of the episodes I really liked this season, episode 8, The Birds. Dave moves back home with his parents for a little bit.
This was a sad episode. You really got to see how... It's sad and good because he also got to realize how shitty of a son he's been, and that his parents have always done everything for him and been there for him, and then when he tries to do something for them, it's really just a selfish self-pat on the back. He's not doing it for them, he's doing it so he can feel good about himself. And his mom's going through a crisis. I don't want to say midlife crisis, but like she's going through some shit because she feels kind of alone.
She gets in an argument with her husband, or Dave's dad, because they're at the mall and he's not answering his phone, and she already like had a conversation about like, hey, I'm gonna be like away, like you're known to not pick up when I call you, like I need you to call me or answer when I call you. And so the dad fails at that again, and they have this whole big argument, which made Dave uncomfortable, and so Dave throws them a dinner to try and like be romantic, but then that just like makes the mom angrier because it's like, you're doing this to make yourself, because you don't like us arguing, you're not doing it to make us happy. And you find out that Dave's dad has depression, and Dave never knew that. And so Dave just starts breaking down crying. He's like, I don't know anything about you guys. And I will say, like, even though this wasn't a particularly funny episode or fun episode to watch, like it kind of made me think about like my own parents, because like I love my parents, but I also don't know a ton about them. And then like they've probably told me stuff and I've just forgotten over the years, but we're just a family that doesn't necessarily like talk about our past or whatever. It's just that we were not super close, even though like I would consider us a close family in all regards. But it did make me think like, oh, how many kids have loving parents and then just like really don't know that much about their parents, because the parents are always just like, they're worried about their kids, and so like they don't necessarily project themselves and tell them about it, because like they don't want to like stop their kids from doing their own thing and growing and going out with friends or whatever. It's like, you don't need to know about what I'm going through, like just I want you to be happy. Like that's the classic parental sacrifice. But now that Dave's in his, I don't know if he's 28 or in the show, or if he's 30 or whatever, but he's old enough to like be equals with his parents, but he's still very much treated like a baby. And it was just interesting. I was just like, oh yeah, I should probably ask my parents some questions. I will give Dave credit for that.
I had that same feeling of just like, oh geez, I know my parents pretty well. It's like, shit, do I know this? Do I know that? But I'm happy to say I do know my dad's favorite color, so I have that on Dave.
His dad's favorite color was tan, which probably was the best joke in the episode. Yeah. It's like, whose favorite color is tan?
Hey, it used to be my favorite M&M color. I loved the tan ones.
There were tan M&Ms?
There were tan M&Ms.
Oh,
and then when they had the contest of what color should we add? Should it be blue, pink, or purple. And of course, blue was going to win because it's like, of course, that's the most obvious color to put in. And I voted for blue. I was very excited for blue. Until I realized that they were taking tan out of M&M's and replacing it with blue. And I was pissed because I always thought the tan ones tasted better because it was just like, it's a chocolatey color, so they're a creamier chocolate. Like, I didn't know what I was talking about. I'm a stupid kid. And so I wouldn't eat blue M&M's for the longest time because they took away my favorite color of M&M.
You should. You need to do a Bob's Burger like gene thing and just like go to the factory and meet the.
Oh yeah, what was this?
Mr. M&M's son or whatever.
Probably the 4th grade when this happened. So I'm pretty sure they don't have any tan M&Ms. Oh, actually no, you could get You could get any color of M&Ms now if you go to an M&M store. They have like, light blue and turquoise, and they have all types of colors. So I'm sure
we'll take a trip to an M&M store just so you can relive your childhood.
Like New York City.
Wherever, buddy. We'll make a day of it just for you.
Just for tan M&Ms, and I'll eat it and go like, meh. And it'll probably only be plain M&Ms, and who the fuck eats plain M&Ms?
Yeah, it's all about that peanut butter, man.
Peanut butter, man. Anyhow.
All
right, what's the next episode?
Well, before we move on, we forgot in this episode, Allie and Dave kind of meet up again. And she gives him a birthday present, I think it is, of like a headband and then a deflated balloon.
Yeah. What was that? Was that like...
It was just like a cute bit that I guess they had where they like had to give each other the worst gifts. Okay. Like that was the thing. And Mike's over at his parents' place and is like, Dave, what kind of music you working on? And he listens to what he thought is the Ally song, but it turns out to be Allie's song, and it's kind of the song that Dave was working on in season 1, or it
wasn't even really a song.
It wasn't really a song.
Dicking around.
Yeah, but he wrote essentially a breakup song about how bad he felt about the whole thing, and Mike's just like, you should put this on the album. Like, it's not a song about your penis. It's good. It's heartfelt, and I think it's really good because they also played some other song. He did like a Me Too song.
Oh God, yeah. Like, who wants their dick sucked? Me too. Oh God.
Yeah. So Dave goes to Allie at the end of the episode and is like, "Hey, I wrote this song and I want to just prepare you for it because I'm thinking about putting it on my album. And I just want kind of your thoughts." And she listens to it. And obviously she gets emotional because she thinks like Dave wrote this beautiful song about how much he cares about her and wishes that they didn't break up, and she's just like, I don't want it on the album because people know we dated and it's just a lot. And then he gets upset at her. It's like, oh well, why are you trying to like hinder my artistic creativity, that kind of stuff. And then she gets upset because it's like, well, you asked for my opinion and you said you kind of like wanted my permission, and when I don't give it to you, you get upset, kind of thing. And so he just their hangout just kind of ends, and he like walks out, and then you see he's like holding the balloon, just like, which is, I thought, like a very cute, nice moment. And so like I liked all that stuff, but it was just it's like, every time Dave does anything that I like, he immediately ruins it, and that's why it's so hard for me to like enjoy the show, because he just always screws it up at the end.
Do you think he was hoping that she would hear this song and take him back, and he kind of backpedaled, going, "Oh no, this isn't that. This isn't
me asking to get back with you. This is a business thing." Yeah, I think it did a good job of like making you go like, I'm not sure. I would say, I think if she was like, I want you back, he would have said yes. Yeah. But I think he was prepared for the no. So I don't think he necessarily expected it. And he backpedaled for it. I just think like he was hoping that it could lead to something. But I don't necessarily think it was just like, oh, that's not the answer I was hoping for. Well, All right, only I think two episodes left. Episode 9, Enlighten Dave. The Benny Blanco episode, which we've talked at length about, was weird. This was weirder in a more psychedelic sense.
It's a very what's his name? Kaufman, Andy Kaufman. What's this?
Charlie Kaufman.
Charlie Kaufman sort of vibes. Very being John Malkovich.
Yeah. So in this episode, in order to try and get an album out of him, the studio set him up with what's the guy's name? Some producer whose name I have heard of, but I forget. So he goes to this house, this expensive mansion, essentially in Hollywood or wherever, and
California desert somewhere.
Yeah. And goes to meet this producer and just meets like these two weirdo guys, and there's an anteater walking around, and one of the weirdo guys is essentially just like, well, in order to get the album out of you, we want to put you in this deprivation tank, and you're just gonna sit in there for a time, and then when you come out, you'll be cleansed and you'll be able to think, because basically your writer's block is coming from your own self, ego and stuff. So get in this thing, I'm just gonna chill out, and then because Dave just thought like, oh, today I'm gonna work on my album. And they're like, no, you're not gonna work on your album. Oh, so he stays over one night before. Then the next morning he's like, all right, so today we're gonna work on the album. He's like, nope, I'm not gonna work on the album. So he's just like, dude, like the studio is like breathing down my neck. Like I gotta work on this album, and I'm gonna work with this guy, and I haven't even met him. Like, where is he at? And so it's just like this whole weird vibe. So they get in the tank, and then Dave has this dream sequence. Essentially, we see the Korean kid from the first episode, and he's like in a Korean military fatigues military uniform, and he's just like, peeing his pants, and he's just like, oh, did you get your ketchup packets, Dave? And Dave's like freaking out, and he's all scared, and he's like running around. He ends up at a restaurant where Els is like the head chef, and Gaeta is just like, come on, man, like you gotta make this food, like people are waiting for it, and Dave like can't make it. He's like, all right, well, here, serve me up, and he has to like take a knife and cut Gaeta's arm off, and you like see him like go into the skin, and it looks disgusting. Yeah. Like that was hard to watch, and so that was very much like you're taking from black culture and feeding it to a bunch of white people. A lot of just symbolism.
Yeah,
in that.
Really heavy-handed metaphors that like are very obvious. It's not, you don't have to think too deep of what you're saying. Like, oh, Els is the head chef. Oh, he's the person who's running this kitchen. And he's like, Dave is just a nobody cook. When Els he's the one that's creating the beats, and he can't do shit. And then so he's got to take from black culture to get anything on the plate. And it's like very, very obvious, but still really good.
Yeah. And, like, obviously, this is a conversation that he's had in his own life, and, like, criticisms he's gotten of being, a white rapper and stuff. Like, it's... He knows what this world is all about, and, like, the conversations that he's had to try and, like, justify and defend himself and everything. Like, he's aware of what he brings to the table, or what the stereotypes are, or whatever. Leads to him meeting his pure self, I guess, which basically is like Danny DeVito
coming out of the couch. Oh no, I'm not coming out of the couch. Covered in hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Just smooth as a baby and bald and just.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was Dave at first. Yeah. It was just like, who is this? And I was like, oh my god, I don't think I've seen Dave with no hair and no eyebrows,
no
beard, and he just looks so weird. Put him in any sort of creepy horror movie where there's some spooky albino thing that witches conjure up or something, he'd be perfect. He's horrifying. He needs that hair.
Yeah, so he sees his like pure form with, I guess, no ego, and has a conversation with himself, and like his ego even plays music. And like Dave is just like in love with like both songs that he plays. Like, holy shit, like that's great. And just like, yeah, man, you should know, you wrote it. And just, Dave, realizes what needs to be done. He like wakes up out of the tank. He was, I guess, kind of like drowning, and he's like pushing the guys off. And he's like, I gotta go record. And then just like runs into the studio and just like bangs out the album like right there. And
it's a good thing that guy already had a beat ready.
Yeah, he's just like, just play anything. And it was like the exact beat from it. It's like, I guess it all works out or whatever, because like, that's not really that important. But a really fun, weird episode. Like,
this one's probably my third favorite.
Yeah. I like when shows deviate from the typical formula. I mean, the show didn't invent like the dream sequence of like metaphors and symbolism or anything, but it was just fun to see something different in the Dave TV universe. Like, this is a believable scenario that I would see in this world for me.
This is probably the closest we would get to like a season 1 jail where you're seeing something that isn't really happening. Something a little heightened, a little weird, just presented in a different way.
Dave's able to finish the album,
which I wish we could have like sat on a little bit. Like him doing song after song and really like everybody getting hyped for him and like, look, oh, he's finally doing it now. But we jump from he has nothing to now he's going to be on the VMAs.
9 episodes of not having an album, and then his album is out, made, and But real quick, I wanted to say my favorite joke of the season, which happened, I can't remember what episode it was, but Dave playing the guitar in the studio, like, my album's not done, but it's kind of like a direction, and he's just like playing like a Plain White Tees kind of like Hey There Delilah kind of song, and he's like got like emo hair and everything, and then like the camera pans out and he like stops the play button because he wasn't actually playing the guitar. It's like, obviously I learned to play the guitar in this scenario, and I just thought that joke was so funny. And
no, the best joke that it took me a second to catch was in the second to last episode. He's staying the night for the first time, and the housekeeper comes in, and he's like, oh, what's the Wi-Fi password? And she says, N-word, INWARD. And he's just like, oh, that's kind of weird. And he thought she said N-word, like the N-word, and it took me a second to catch that joke, and it's like, that is so fucking funny. I've never thought of the word of like bringing something inward is you're saying the N-word. Like, it sounds exactly the same. And Dave would think that their Wi-Fi password
was just
is
a
this
racial
slur. Yes.
All right, so the final episode, I believe just titled Dave. Yep. So Dave's album was released. He called Peanut. And the episode opens and we see Gaeta, and he's at home and he's getting ready for his day to meet up with Dave, and you see his mom talking to I guess a neighbor or an uncle of, I think it's uncle. Yeah.
Or her brother.
Yeah. And she's just signing over a part of the house to him, and
to her daughter.
To her daughter. Oh, I thought it was to both of them.
Or they're putting the daughter's name on the mortgage, not like she's given up the house to anyone. It's just like, we need someone that's my direct lineage to be on this house, so we don't lose
And Gaeta is kind of upset by that. It's like, how come you didn't ask me? And it's like, oh, is it because you think I'm crazy? And then they have a big fight, and because of it's bipolar disorder. And so he's walking out, and Dave Tuttle comes on, and find out Gaeta's name is Devontae, so he's a Dave. And then so we see Dave on a billboard, like basically
in a Christ position.
In a Christ position, basically naked, and no one's paying attention to the billboard, which he thought was a good idea. And it begins to rain, and
emergency services
had to like come get him down
because of like a hail or something was happening.
With rain or hail or something, and so none of that went well, and he meets up with his studio people, but it's not like his normal studio people, and they're just like, yeah, you have the #1 album in the country, and Dave's super excited about that, and it's like, oh yeah, #1 on the comedy charts, and he's like, I didn't make a comedy album, and he's like, where am I on the Billboard charts? And they're like,
92
or something like that. And then Dave is super pissed because also Ariana Grande dropped a surprise album that no one knew, so that killed a lot of his sales too. So he was furious about that, and they're like, we didn't see the Ariana thing coming, and Gaeta is just kind of like, bro, be cool, like be grateful that all this has happened at all. And then Dave's just like telling him like, dude, like shut up, I'm trying to hold these people accountable. Like Dave, being Dave, is just thinking like, I'm great and no one else is helping me be great. And so then we have Gaeta kind of storm off, and Gaeta's mom calls Dave and just like, hey, I think Gaeta might be having an episode, and he bought a BMW and stuff
with the $8,000
and then you find
borrowed from Dave.
In a previous episode, Gaeta asked for money, and Dave said sure, but he never found out how much, and then you find out Dave gave him $8,000, and he's like, so Dave goes to his house, he's like, dude, you're right. He's like, yeah, I'm not having an episode. It's like, I bought this BMW for this music video that I'm shooting with Emma, and he's like, well, where's Emma at? And he's like, oh, she just went to go get a battery. He's like, so Dave like thinks that he's lying, and that he's like having an episode and Emma's not actually there. And so they have this big argument where it's just like, dude, you don't appreciate me, and every week is the biggest week of your life, and it's all about you, and it's like, how come you didn't feature me on the song? And Dave's just like, well, I don't think your music's any good. And it's like, which is like the worst, like that was like, of all the things Dave has done this season, I was like, don't talk to Gator like that.
Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah, like Gator's
had your back this whole time.
Yeah, is the day one. I guess Mike and Els are day oneers, but Gator's just like your biggest supporter more than your closest friends the longest time. Like, no one believes in you more than Gator. And they have this big fight, and then Emma shows up, and so like they were shooting the video. Gator wasn't having an episode. He was just naturally upset, as anyone would be.
He may have been having a little bit of an episode.
Sure. But at least not in the way that we've seen in previous stuff.
I really like how he was like, hey, Emma, can you give us a second? We're in the middle of something. And she's like, no, we're in the middle of something.
You're kind of hijacking it, which is like, of course,
that's
great.
Dave.
So yeah, that was cool to see. And then we go back. Oh, we see before the big fight, we see Dave practice for the VMA performance, and it's this medley of like, I think 3 or 4 different songs, it seems like, and they're all fantastic.
Absolutely.
And they're only like, each song's like a little minute snippet, and it just bums me out that there hasn't been like a full release of all these songs. And it's that whole performance, I was like, man, that'd be like, all these songs are great. I want to hear all of them, and it's shot so well. The woman who directed Honey Boy directed the episode. I don't know if you knew that. Alma Burrell, I believe her name is. And I think the whole episode's great, well shot, but especially this sequence because especially like when he's got the little like tarp dress on, it's a shot from above, and I don't know. There's just like a lot of really cool shots in his performance, but it's very big. It's definitely a Dave thing. I want the most elaborate, complicated thing of.
He could have just like had a simple performance doing one song, but no, he has to like give a little bit of everything because everything he's done is so great.
Yeah,
I gotta let him all know.
It's like he saw a bunch of other performers' concepts and then just combined them all into one.
And I can get his point of being like, look, my album premiered so low, nobody is hearing this. If I give them a little bit of everything, they'll be like, oh no, I need to hear the rest of it. You just said you want to hear the rest of it, so it makes perfect sense for him to be like, well, if I come out with one song and that only grabs a few people, whatever, but if I do like 5 songs, maybe there's something for 5 different types of people. So I get it, but it's just very much in Dave fashion.
Yeah. But that sets us up as an audience to believe, okay, this is the performance that they're going to do, and this is the plan, and they even have a thing where like they think that it's going to get cut for more Ariana Grande time, so they're like, all right, well, I'm going to get a real surgery on my penis so they can't take me off stage, and which is utterly ridiculous. The dumbest thing. But I also love that Mike was instantly just like, this is the greatest idea you've ever had. It's like, you're his manager. Like, don't let him do this.
Don't encourage this.
It's like, it's one thing if you want to like try and scheme your way into more time and fuck somebody, but it's like, you're going to let your client get his dick sliced open on live television just so he can like get 2 more minutes on stage or whatever, or 4 more minutes.
4 more minutes, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like, I'm glad the episode ends the way it does because Mike needed a reality check as well for being an enabler. But
I also think maybe like if it fell through and it ate him, bit him in the ass or whatever, he'd be fine with it. It's like, whatever, my time with Dave is done. I have other things to do.
Yeah.
So if you want to do this big thing that may ruin your career, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, so Dave goes back to the VMAs after his fight with Gata, and he talks to Mike and Els, and kind of just like, it seems like his talk with Gata really messed him up and really made him realize like how shitty he has been to his friends who have helped him along the way. And he tells Els and Mike, hey, I know I don't say enough and I'm not good at appreciating you guys, but like, you guys make my dreams come true, and thank you for everything you've done. And you can tell like Mike is on the verge of tears because
He's never been thanked for anything.
Yeah, this whole season he's just been soloing and felt like none of the things he's done for Dave has amounted to any appreciation whatsoever. So it was nice to see him get his due. And you see Dave climb up the ladder, and you think his performance is about to start. It cuts to Allie, who's on a date with a new guy. Emma's working on the music video that they were doing with Gata. So all of his friends are now getting ready to watch his performance, and you see Gata, and he's just crying tears, and you think where's Gata at? Is he gonna? What's he gonna do? I never believed for a second that he was gonna hurt himself or anything.
But I thought he was abandoned.
But it does a good job of just because why would he be about to do what he's about to do? Then they're all right, here's Lil Dicky, and then the stage, you get the shot of the stage, and it looks exactly like it was from his previous performance. But instead of Dave coming up, it's Gata, and Gata starts the show and does the song he did from the beginning, at the beginning of the episode that he was working on. And they just have this beautiful song about friendship, and it might be kind of cheesy, but when the beat drops, it becomes this fun energy, and I think we talked about it earlier, so I'm not going to get into it again, but just so great, and really turning the whole season around for me. This is one of the best episodes of Dave.
I think there's 4 very strong episodes in this season, and the other 6 are just either not great or just fine. Whereas I think season 1, I'd say probably almost every episode is great. I would have to go back and rewatch it. Maybe there's 1 or 2 that I don't love. Normally in your season 2, it's okay, we found our footing, and now we can really step up and do something amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't think they did. I think they just kind of not even really stumbled, but just took a simpler path. I don't know how to describe it, but
yeah, I think they wanted to cut jokes for character development, or at least show Dave in a different light, and because of this different light, he's not going to be funny. So that's the big thing about this season. Just it's purposely not as funny, but I want a funny show, especially if it's about a white rapper constantly talking about his penis with 2 holes in it.
Yeah. I can see if season 3 is the tour season, because I could see every episode is a different city, different performance, and all the crazy antics they get in. Maybe only 4 episodes or something. I can see a lot more comedy coming from Dave just having fun, and finally he's living his dream and doing it. And maybe this show was a bomb and he got booed, and this one he has women throwing themselves at him. I can see next season potentially being really funny. So maybe this has to be kind of the downer, character driven season before we get to more of the comedy.
Years ago, Dave had a YouTube channel where he posted right after his I guess mixtape or first whatever it was came out. You saw him go on a mini tour, and he had behind the scenes and stuff, and you saw him meeting fans and everything, and you had shots of him signing girls' boobs, and or one girl come up to him and just grab his face and kiss him, and he has to kind of push her off, because he's just that kind of stuff scares him. And he's talking to the camera, and he's just yeah, I texted T-Pain or some rapper or whatever, just dude, what do you do after a show? Because after I get off stage, it's 11 p.m. A lot of bar, or even later, and it's I can't go out after a show. I'm sweaty, and I smell gross. I don't look good. So then I have to go back to the hotel and shower and change. And by that time, it's pushing 1 o'clock, and the bar's gonna how do you meet girls after a show? And I think that could lend itself to some comedy. Sure. How to because that's something you just think I'm a celebrity after a show, I'm just gonna get blowies backstage from some groupie chick. It's Dave. I feel from everything I've heard about Dave and his fears of STDs and stuff, hooking up with groupies is the last thing he wants to do. And then even if he did, what do I have to do that when the show and natural body scent won't allow me to?
Yeah.
I think that could be fun. It's just him trying to go on a date really quick, but getting lost in the hustle of having to go home and shower and yada yada yada. And maybe that's his Doja Cat moment of constantly being too busy and he can't even talk to a girl.
I can see a funny thing of him going, well, while this other performer is opening for me, that's when I do all my behind the stage things. That's when I try to get the groupies and the fans before it, so then I don't have to worry about doing it afterwards. And then maybe he does have sex or whatever, and he just like can't bring the energy to his performance or something. So he's like, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Or like he hooks up with her and he like comes too quick, and then she's like front row, and then he's like so embarrassed, or like something happens where he's like so embarrassed by that exchange, and she's just like kind of like just giving him the eye daggers the whole time, and it's just like really fucking his performance up because he just like can't, like she's right there, you can't like not look at her.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be funny, and then like it's like, okay, so I can't do that anymore, and then tries to do it afterwards, and then that goes. So yeah, that would be a fun episode.
Yeah, so that was Dave, season 2.
Woo!
I mean, wow.
We talked about that for way longer than I thought.
Yeah, well,
I hope you guys like Dave and spoilers of Dave, because we just gave you all of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's this week's episode, where since we didn't have much else to talk about, why not Dave, you know? Give a little show that, I mean, I think it's one of the biggest FX shows of all time, but,
yeah,
you know.
It's like that, and It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, and Atlanta.
The Shield.
All right, well, thanks everyone for listening. That was long and in-depth.
Yeah.
But
we had a lot to say about Dave.
Yeah,
season 2.
I did not know I had that much to say about Dave, but all right, well, if you want to get in contact with us, you can email us at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at WRPLpodcast. I was Ben.
And I'm Steve. And tune in next time for when I read the announcements.
Oh yeah, we forgot to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you'll start it next time.
Okay, cool.
Bye everyone.